Hey, this is Madeline Sklar.
And Suze Cooper, and you're listening to All Things Audio. Here we are, X News Daily. Madeline, tell us about this tweet that you found today.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. All right, so they shared a screenshot, which I put into the nest. We'll have it in the show notes for our podcast listeners. An interesting screenshot saying that this is a preview of X's upcoming voice and video call feature. But what's interesting about this, it says this is based on code on what they're building for Android. So interesting that this is being worked on for Android. Doesn't say anything about iOS. So maybe they'll get it first. I don't know that yet. But it's really interesting. It says it appears that video and voice calls will be opt-in, and that you'll be able to restrict calls to users in your address book, people you follow, or verified users. So I'm kind of excited about this. I wish it was something that we could beta test, because I think it'd be interesting that, like, you and I could sit here and ring each other up through our phones on the X app and just chat, like a call, like WhatsApp.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that on WhatsApp already. So I'm still confused as to why they think that we would use Twitter to do something that people are already using other apps to do.
Well, it's because as Elon has said multiple times in the past, he wants this to be the everything app. He wants X to be the everything app. He wants to compete with WhatsApp. He's competing right now with YouTube. We can upload, if you're a verified blue check, you have the X Premium account, formerly called Twitter Blue. You can upload up to 3 hours of video. So it's competing with YouTube, but we don't think of using this platform yet for things outside of what we're conditioned to use it for. So will people use it to make calls like instead of WhatsApp? Are they going to, I don't see people rushing to X to use this as a way to watch long form video. I don't hear anybody do. I still go to YouTube. I'm actually a YouTube Premium subscriber because I don't want to look at commercials. And I love going to YouTube. And I think it's going to be very hard to get us conditioned to leave that and come do everything on the X platform. What do you think?
Well, without wanting to mention Clubhouse too early on, I think it's a very similar thing in that, we're kind of thinking of it in terms of, well, why would we use it for this? I think, in fact, when, it's about the audience. Who's the audience and who's the demographic for X, for Clubhouse, and just because we're the ones still on here using it doesn't necessarily mean that they're building it out and trying to create features that are for us, right? I think a lot of these apps at the moment are trying to future-proof themselves. They're trying to think forward. They're trying to appeal to Gen Z. They're trying to appeal to, even younger, in order that they can get some longevity in what they're doing. And to do that, they're throwing an awful lot of spaghetti at the wall, right, to see what sticks. And I'm guessing that some of it, they probably have some data around somewhere that suggests, that these are the type of things that are going to hook people in. So yeah, I wonder if it's not about the user base that perhaps we see when we look left and right, and it's actually about those that maybe they're trying to attract into the app. Certainly X lost a lot with, not being Twitter anymore. They're redesigning themselves, rebranding themselves. Elon's clearly got some kind of roadmap going on. And I would imagine, even if he doesn't have a specific idea in mind as to who this thing is for, someone around him surely must have, right?
I would think so.
So maybe that's why these things don't make sense to us, but might make sense in a business sense to them and what they're doing with the brand. That's all I can think.
I think the key is going to be making sure that users know that we have features. Like when this becomes available, making sure people are educated, knowing that, hey, by the way, on the mobile app, you can make these video calls. You can make voice calls. If I'm normally on X most of my time, if this is my favorite platform, but I have to leave the platform to go to WhatsApp to make those types of calls, like what I would normally do, but now I don't have to leave the X platform. Well, that could be very appealing to some people. So it'll be interesting, but I think it's going to boil down to, are they going to make sure people know that this is now available? I mean, how many people still don't even know about Spaces? And we've been using it for 2.5 years. And it's really a small percentage that use it.
It's very true. Yeah. And, have we seen more new hosts coming through? Certainly recently I haven't. I've not seen an awful lot of people that I used to see quite often. It's interesting to see where it's all heading, and who they're building this thing for is still a bit of a black box, I think, from our point of view as the audience.
Yeah, but I do think they are building it for the younger generations, and I think that's actually a very smart move, but making it appealing to everyone. So I've talked about this a lot in my spaces the last few weeks, and all of my spaces, that I would rather us have as many features as possible. So then as that individual user, we can customize the platform to what our needs are. So I say bring it on, give us all these features. And I think for many of us, as we use these different features, it's like, gosh, I never need to leave the platform. So then it truly becomes the all-in-one, the everything app that Elon is trying to make this be. So I think they still have a ways to go with all of this, but I think they're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, and therein lies the key. They don't want us to go anywhere else. They want everything to happen within the app, don't they? Even down to our phone calls and our video calls. So this would be the way to do that, right?
Definitely. We also have some interesting posts from a thread that I came across. I'm going to share this for you all to see. So this is from NFT God. He is really making a name for himself all over the X platform, because he's a guy that knows how to read the code, talk about the algorithm, and decipher it so that it's something we can all understand, because most of us don't know how to read the code. And what he's been doing is really looking between the lines of like, okay, he's looking at the big picture of all these new changes and what's coming. And so he did this very interesting thread saying, with all these changes coming about, he's basically doing like a hypothetical of what he thinks this X platform is going to look like in 12 months. And so I'm going to share some very interesting posts that he's added to this thread. And the first one is, we don't know if this is all going to happen, but this is his hypothetical, and he has these really interesting short little video clips of examples. It's not the real deal. They're just mock-ups of how he thinks this would work. But this first one is possibly we could have tipping in spaces, which I just think this makes for a great conversation, Suze, because how awesome would it be for us to be able to have our listeners tip us in spaces in real time while they're listening, or even for those listening to the replay. I think that would be really interesting. You might think back to several years ago when we got that tipping feature that nobody talks about anymore. I'm sure most of the X users don't even realize you could tip us. You could tip Suze and I right now by tapping on our profile. If you go to my profile, you go to Suze's profile, at the top of our profile, to the right of our profile picture, there's a little dollar bill icon. That's a tipping feature that was added several years ago. And so you can sit here and tip us, but it's not frictionless. Like, who's going to sit here and do that in this space? It's some extra steps. Most people don't know they could do it. So I like this idea that NFT God is proposing, that possibly this could be something built right into spaces in the future. What's your thought on that, Suze? Because I find this very intriguing.
Yeah, I think the little video there, when you kind of run the video and see his idea in action, I like the fact that you're in the space, and basically a little menu, you can click on one of the menus at the bottom where the sort of voice changery, soundboard, all of that kind of thing have been in the past. You could click something down there while you're in the space, and you can actually, from what he shows on the video, which I'm assuming he's put together himself very cleverly, and does, could very easily be confused for being a real screenshot of what's happening. But what it would allow you to do, he's suggesting, is that you could literally pick someone in that space, not necessarily just the host, but anyone. So anyone who's said something great, or, has really obviously thought through what's being said, all of those kind of things. All those times when we might have given someone a round of applause, we might be able to tip them by using this feature if it were to be added. I'd be really interested to know if people think they would use that kind of feature in future. Do you think it would be used, Madeline?
I think so, because let me tell you why. When I look at this short little video clip, of what he envisions it to be. And I love how like you tap, you can, this example's $1, $3, $5, or custom, put your own amount. The reason why I think it would work if it was baked right in the way he's showing here is that it's going to be that whole psychological thing. You're in a space, you're looking at your screen. Oh, you just saw your friend just tipped the host. Now you feel compelled to tip. And I'll tell you why I know this works, because years ago, this platform came out back when I was in the music business that was geared for musicians to, if they wanted to, it was kind of when live streaming was new, and for artists to be able to play like a little live stream show from your computer for your super fans. You could just do like a little 30-minute, 1 hour little, let me jam and play some songs for you. And there was a tipping feature baked right into it. And I can't tell you how many times I'd go to support one of these artists and watch their live show. And as soon as somebody tips, everybody feels compelled. And I would just like tip, and you feel like you have to follow the herd. You feel bad if you don't, and you want to show your support, and everybody sees that you just tipped. So when I look at this example, it brings me back to that, and it really works. So I think this is a great idea. I think it was cool when we got the tipping feature on our profiles years ago, but it's not something that's top of mind for anybody. And again, most people don't even know it exists. But if you do something like this, where it's incorporated right into the broadcast, I think it would totally work. And I think people would be more compelled to want to, put a few dollars in when they're really enjoying the space. We don't want anybody to feel like, oh, they have to because their friend just tipped. I mean, you don't have to do it, but there is like this thing where like you see it and you feel like, oh, I should do it too. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
It's a lot like, it reminds me of on YouTube, if you're watching a live stream, sometimes you see, you see the your username pop up has subscribed to this channel, or has, purchased a subscription or whatever, because you can put things on the shop there on YouTube. So I guess it's a similar sort of psychology to that. And I think you're right in that behavior wise, the dollar and the tipping, the dollar icon and the tipping previously, it's kind of out of the way. You've got to click on someone's face from the space. You're faced with their bio. Then you've got to find the dollar bill icon. It's a lot of taps through, and it takes you out of the space. So also, if you're already engrossed in that space and part of it, I mean, we had enough trouble just trying to spin up a space today, let alone the stability of jumping in and out of something and wondering if you're going to lose it when actually you're quite enjoying it and immersed in it, to the point that you want to tip this person. To take you out of that, I think, is a step too far, as you say. So incorporating it like this would be amazing. As we say, we don't know whether this is even something that is completely on the cards, but certainly these mock-ups have got us thinking about it, haven't they?
It really does. That's why I wanted to share it today, because I think it is very interesting and it does make you really think. And the other post in this thread is the reverse, receiving tips in spaces. So this would be for the host, and he's showing the example of how he's envisioning like how you'd be able to look to see who is sending you tips and how much revenue you're generating. So I think this is really interesting. And this guy really has a pulse on what's going on the platform. And Elon does talk a lot about wanting to offer monetization features for creators. So I would not be surprised if we do see something like this in the next 12 months.
Yeah, I'm sure it is somewhere in the depths of what he's doing, particularly if he can take a percentage of it, right?
Exactly. For sure. It is a business, let's not forget.
Thank you to our sponsor, Zealous, right, Madeline?
Yes, we're so thrilled to have Zealous on board as our sponsor. You and I have talked about this incredible tool many times here in All Things Audio, because it is a great tool for those that are like us, that are hosting or speaking in spaces, or if you're a podcaster, you can use this to create all kinds of great content that when you want to take your audio and repurpose it. You and I, Suze, have both been playing around with this tool, and we're just so excited to officially welcome Zealous on board.
Yeah, we certainly are. And you can find out a bit more about Zealous and even have a go at the free trial if you go along to allthingsaudiopodcast.com/Zealous.
Yeah, we made it
I think
easy.
I'll miss the W's out in future. Yeah.
I know, it's not necessary. Everybody knows what it means now. Kind of nice.
I know, I don't know why I said it. Right, Clubhouse. Madeline, I have spent time I don't have to spend on Clubhouse this week.
Yeah, Clubhouse, we sure have been talking about this quite a bit with these new changes, but you've been spending more time over there, right? And playing around with this new chat feature?
I have, and I blame Morgan completely. I can see you lurking there. I'm not going to, I won't ask you to come up and talk to us because I know that you're travelling. And the reason that I know that you're travelling, Morgan, is because I've been listening to you travel for the last week. Morgan actually created a chat over on Clubhouse that became more unmissable listening than my favourite podcasts this week. So Morgan went off to Seville last week and he decided to take his Clubhouse friends with him in one of these new chats, which if you haven't found out yet, Clubhouse have had a new update. They've updated the platform so that you now have chats, which are asynchronous voice notes. So you can leave a little voice note and then your friends can listen into that voice note. Friends can respond to the voice note and it kind of continues the conversation, but in your own time, kind of on demand, whenever you're ready to listen to it or to add to it if you've got something to add. You can leave some emojis in there if you like what you're listening to while you're listening. And most certainly that's really what I've been listening to since last Thursday. So Morgan started out by taking us on the trip literally from London to the plane. And then I have heard the sounds and I feel like I've seen the sights even of art, of streets in Seville, of flamenco dancers. Oh my goodness, he has completely brought it to life in such an amazing way. And it has been just such a lovely introduction and use to Clubhouse's chats. I've really enjoyed listening and also hearing from the other people that have commented, joining in a little bit, but more so just as a listener. It has been really good listening. And it's definitely got me thinking about the different ways that people might use these chats. Again, we weren't completely sold on it initially, and I do still think that, again, this is going for an audience that love the short form content, that are quite happy to kind of leave the voice notes backwards and forwards. It's a way that they communicate anyway on WhatsApp and those kind of things. So I do think this is going for a younger demographic, but at the same time, there are some really cool things happening on there. And this one from Morgan certainly caught my imagination this week.
Yeah, it was really interesting listening to his chat. And the thing is, there's so many parts to it now. Like, it doesn't seem to be a way to skip ahead unless you just tap and it's one at a time. Is that still right?
There's a lot of tapping involved. And I also found it very difficult sometimes to find it again. So although it's not completely overrun in my hallway, I guess is what it is, I would have liked to have been able to pin that chat. I mean, maybe you can, and I just haven't worked out how you do that, but I would have liked to have been able to go straight back into it. Whereas I worked out in the end that the easiest way that I could get back to it was through the notifications bell and then finding it in the list where someone had left the last message. And it wouldn't always necessarily take me back to where I last left it either. So I'd then have to kind of tap backwards and forwards to find out where I was last. I'd also quite like to have known, how long is this thing? It needs a counter, I think, that literally tells you how long it is as it builds, because it would be almost, nice to know when you jump in there how much longer you've got to listen, how much you've already listened to, if you want to go back to the beginning or whatever. So I think, there are little features and little tweaks that they could certainly make to it. But, they said they were shipping it and still building it as ever. So I'm sure some of these things, if people really feel that they're necessary, will be added to it in time. But it's certainly taken my imagination. There've been a few that have really caught my eye. So there was a good one that was Etiquette for Dummies. This was the People's Guide to the do's and don'ts of chats. Now, this started out as, just literally someone, John, saying, come on, what's the etiquette then for leaving these chats? What do we want to hear and what do we not want to hear? And it became hilarious because people basically left their voice note in the manner of doing all the things you don't want to hear on there. So like rambling away and saying they hadn't quite worked out the app yet, going completely off topic, speaking somewhere that was really noisy and loud, all of these different things. But it was so funny to listen to. That was another one. Another one that was there was Cackles, Jeff, who's been in our spaces over here, left a very standard, I can't come to the phone right now, please leave your message after the beep. The responses to that were also really funny. And Michael Sterling, who's in the space today, did a great patio sounds around the world. So literally just like people recording 30 seconds of the sounds from their patio, wherever they are in the world. That kind of thing and soundscapes really grips me. I love those kind of things. So I thought that was a clever idea as well. I've no idea where the live rooms are. I can't find them. I don't know where they are. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be looking. And if people leave me private DMs, it may be days before I get back to you because that little blue dot doesn't mean anything to me yet. And it took me ages to reply to you, Madeline, because I just didn't see it.
Yeah, they're not making it easy, are they? Because I was so excited when we had the new feature. So I let me just send you like a private voice message, and I didn't hear back. But then I thought, well, I haven't really been checking mine, and I was debating, should I turn on notifications? Should I keep it on? I like keeping notifications off for everything, honestly, because I just get too many notifications of everything if it's turned on. So I just conditioned myself to just go manually check it enough times so that way I'm okay. And for several days I was going into Clubhouse daily and checking and stuff, but I think they're just not making it super easy for people to get notified unless you have notifications on. It's hard to find stuff. At least that's been my experience. So, and I'm with you. And the only reason why I see Morgan's chats because they keep showing up in my feed, which is good. And that's what I want. But otherwise, I think I'd have a hard time finding them.
Definitely. I definitely think there's different things that they need to think about and perhaps kind of clean up a bit over there. But generally, I've had a good laugh over there this week, which, that can't be bad, can it?
Right. But it's cool what they're doing. I'm liking this direction they're going in.
Yeah, I do quite like it. And initially, it was a very difficult change. A lot of people kind of went, what's this? It's a completely different thing. And it is. But I think once you get into it, if you find your people, then I think it can really work. So it's very interesting watching it evolve and listening to people and seeing what they're doing with it. Yeah.
I think the best thing they could have done was not to be so silent for so long and leaving all of us wondering what is going on over there. Is it going to stay? Is it going to go away? Because they were just so quiet for too many months.
Yeah, they did. They spent ages not telling us what was happening. And I think, and then when the update did come out, it's annoyed a lot of people. But then these things do, don't they? If something's going to change, that's not going to appeal to everybody. It would have to stay the same in order to do that. And that was clearly not what they were going to do.
So I just put a post into the nest from Morgan. Did you see that, Suze? He's sharing like some updates with Clubhouse this week that we can talk about for a moment here. Thank you, Morgan, since you can't speak with us. But man, that was awesome. Like, hey, just put a post here for us. So live rooms will show up at the top. Well, that's good to know. So there you go, Suze. Look for them at the top.
Yeah, I think one of the chats that I listened into just before we went live here earlier was Brandon, who was in our space last week, saying that his hallway had actually been overrun by live rooms. And that's what made me think again about where they were. I have to admit, all the while that I've been so engrossed in Morgan's chat and other chats that I've been taking part in, I haven't really thought about the live room aspect of it at all. But it was when he said it earlier in chats that his hallway had been flooded by them that it suddenly made me think, I still don't really know how to get to them. So that's really interesting and must be, as Morgan said here, if live rooms are going to show at the top, potentially that would have been that update coming through for Brandon maybe and therefore kind of flooding his feed, if you like. But yeah, interesting. Okay, so live rooms going to show at the top. Cool. What's the next one?
A skip to end button for chats. That is so good to know, but I couldn't figure it out. So I would love to know, how do we skip to the end? Because what was interesting, I'd seen the one that Morgan had started, before with his trip. And I went back into Clubhouse the other day and I saw it again. So I pressed on it. I don't remember. I think it started at the beginning, which I was like, because I do remember like, wait a minute, I already heard this stuff. I thought it was going to pick up where it left off, which I know it's done for me before. But I thought but then I could see at the top, like, oh, there's a lot of lines at the top, which means there's a lot more conversation, because this has just been this ongoing conversation for quite a while. But I could not figure out how to skip to get, further along. I just had to keep tap, 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 tap. And I know you can tell by looking at those lines if if that person's segment is short or long. But I wish it could give us a little more information, like maybe somehow tell us how many seconds. It was still kind of hard to decipher, and the more that is added to it, the smaller those lines are. So I had a really hard time kind of deciphering through that, and like, okay, this is going to be too long to listen to the whole thing from the beginning, and I already listened to part of it early on. So, how much more? Where does it end? How many? Maybe it should have a number of how many segments until the end. Maybe something like that would be nice to have.
Yeah, as I say, like some kind of time information would be good. I think a skip to the end button could be problematic in terms of if people literally just skip to the end. Like if you listen to the first message and then just skip to the end and add your thoughts, and you're not aware that perhaps the conversation might have meandered around a bit here and there, and it might not be relevant, if you see what I mean, that for what you're then saying just by skipping to the end. But in another breath, it would be good to be able to just go straight to the end and add your thoughts rather than having to tap, 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 tap all the way through. So yeah, definitely pros and cons with that one that I can see happening. A more prominent reactions button is number 3. Yeah, I think the thing is with the reactions, like everyone finds the heart because that's down at the bottom and it is very clearly the outline of the heart symbol. But people don't think about if you long press that heart, you can actually get a bit of a palette of emojis. There aren't loads of them. There's probably about 4, 8, 16 maybe. But yes, I guess the reactions within reactions almost, unless you just want to do a heart emoji. It's not kind of obvious that those others are hidden. They're almost like hidden behind the button. So maybe making that a bit more obvious would be a good thing to do maybe.
I didn't know that we could do that. What would be helpful is how on the X platform, when there's something brand new, usually it'll pop up when you go onto the mobile app and then a thing pops up to explain very quickly, like, hey, you can do this now. I think that would be helpful because I didn't know I could long press it for the reaction. So that's good to know.
Yeah, I had to go through the Spaces tutorial again last week because I got a new phone. So all the while that we were doing the space, it kept telling me about things. And I was like, yes, I know. I'm trying to do a space. Go away. But I guess, yeah, in terms of having a whole new refresh of the app, that kind of on-screen walkthrough tutorial would be good. I know that they did a chat to begin with when you first opened up the app after the update, where you could hear the founders kind of talking about what they'd done and running through a few of the things. But yeah, I mean, the long press on the emojis, I think that was actually in the Spaces house where Morgan was there. That's how I found out about it. So it was by listening to other people that I found out, rather than kind of, probably wouldn't have thought to have sat there and fiddled about with it to find it, because I wouldn't have expected them to be there. So what's his number 4? A way to see your friends online. Okay. So I'm guessing that means that if someone is on there, either in a live room or leaving a chat somewhere, it would give them some kind of icon or something. We had that before, didn't we, where we could see who was on the platform. You could give them a wave kind of thing. Yeah, I guess knowing that other people are around is one of those things at the moment that you're not so aware of. So yeah, that's another good one. And sending a private message direct from a chat segment.
That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's put me off the private messaging was that at first I couldn't work out whether I was doing it publicly or privately. And then there was a thing about if you're in a public room and you try and leave a private DM, other people might hear it, and oh my goodness. So I think that's why as I say, the blue dot didn't mean that I had a DM to me at all for days and days and days. But I hadn't gone back into that section because I was so confused about who might be able to hear it.
I was confused in the beginning for sure. I could not really tell, like, when I first came across it, I couldn't tell if it was public or not. So I just, went into one and chimed in, and then I started one, but I was like, okay, is this public or private? And then I went directly to your profile to figuring, well, let me try to do a private chat, but I wasn't 100% sure as I'm doing it. So hopefully they'll improve that so things become more obvious. So like when I'm here on X, it's obvious if you're in the DMs or you're just publicly posting and connecting.
Yeah, they're very kind of definite separate areas, aren't they? I suppose still over with the chats, it still feels like, I can see everybody's profile pictures in the round bubble, even in like the private DM section. It doesn't feel like it's sort of separate enough to tell me that this is going to be a different, my audio is going to go to a different place, if you see what I mean.
Thank you to all of our speakers who came on and shared so much great stuff. And we're available in all of your favorite podcast apps. We're out there, All Things Audio. You can also go to allthingsaudiopodcast.com as well.
You certainly can. And you can catch us here on Twitter and use the hashtag AllThingsAudio, and we'll pick that up throughout the week. So that's it for this week. But thank you so much to everyone that's been here in the space with us and those of you listening. And we'll catch up with you next week.
Bye, everybody.